there. I'm so pleased to have you here, Jean Nolan. And yeah, I've
Well, it's
been
a pleasure to be here,
listening to you.
Cornelia. And it's actually Jean. It's actually Jean, not Jean. No worries.
You call yourself okay. Sorry, I have to.
How's it going? How's your day been going so far?
Okay, now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can
Yes,
hear
I can
you.
hear you now. Yeah. There you go. We're
Yeah,
back. Good.
yeah, we're good. Yeah, I put up your volume. They want to hear you. Yeah, you call yourself John, right? I thought it
Yeah,
was,
it's
I'm
the French
Swedish.
version.
My
Yeah.
bad.
No
Yeah,
worries. No worries.
yeah, and you're from. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I have played your music a couple of times in my channel, and we love it. Keep America Great, and yeah, you have several hits. Um,
Well, thank you.
please
Thank you.
introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Well, I think we were connected by a fellow freedom warrior, if you will, online. And this is kind of how these connections work these days. But I'm the co-founder of the Inspired channel on YouTube and Rumble, and I'm an
Mm.
artist and songwriter originally from Europe. But
Oh,
Nashville, Tennessee is my home and our home now. And
yeah.
I've been on this journey of truth seeking and on this freedom journey for most of my life, actually. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful to see the culmination and how things are unfolding now in many ways, and a little
Mm.
disheartening and sad in other ways. But generally speaking, truth, authenticity, freedom, that's kind of what we're really about, what we want to inspire in people, what we want to talk about. And that's, I think, what connects us today here on your show.
Mm. Yeah. Uh, I think they can hear us. Uh, we have Anna in the chat, and she was the one that she
Hey
wants to
Anna,
say
how's it
good morning
going?
to you. And yeah, well, I heard your video about trust a plan, and it. I'm so curious about all these talking points, and I mean we have heard them, many of them for years, and yeah, I want to talk about the plan. I mean, what is the problem, and how do we see our future? What do we want? I mean, I believe we have a common goal, all of us, all over the world. Actually, I mean, this is a global movement, and we want freedom, right?
Yes, yes, I agree
Yeah.
with you on that. The question you posed a good question. What is the plan? And of
Mm,
course, when you say trust the plan or the plan, it refers to a lot of what has come out of the Q movement over the years. And
mm,
then there's Q, and then there's the movement, right? There's the information that was provided through many, many drops over years. And then there is
mm,
a whole movement of people that have interpreted and have predicted and prophesized and all of that. And there's in that movement there is a large section that I call the hopium movement. And hopium
mm,
is, we're that it's basically reaching for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. Oh, this date or that. And I'm not even saying that is coming out of the Q drops themselves. That is coming out of the people that have attached themselves to that. And I have
mm,
no doubt. I have no doubt that there are secret operations going on in many places of the world. But then again, those secret
mm,
operations have always been going on. What we're what we're thinking, or what a lot of people are thinking, is that these secret operations, maybe for the first time, a majority of them are positive and for the well-being of humanity. I think that is basically the
mm,
premise of this. And I'm not here to agree or disagree with it, because frankly, I don't know. And nobody
mm,
else
mm,
knows either. This is the whole point. because these are secret operations. And everybody who knows anything about how military operates, how top secret clearances operate, there are no leaks. There would never be leaks. That's why the vast majority of past operations, whether they were good or bad, we've never heard about. And frankly, we might never hear about. So this is a premise that it kind of, when you consider this, it takes away about 90% of what is being talked about on a daily basis because it's almost all hot air. But I understand that it has also created a beautiful community of people who are digging, researching, learning, expanding. So I
Mm,
acknowledge all these things, and they're positive. What I what I have
mm,
always criticized from the get-go is exactly the line that you put out, is trust the plan, which I think is horrible because it
mm,
pacifies people. That in and of itself says, "Hey, you don't know what we're doing. You don't know how we're doing it. You don't know who's doing it, but just trust it." And there are so many examples in history, especially if you study um,
mm,
wars of the past. And you have to all you have to do is go to the art of war, and this is exactly what the art of war is about. It's deception, misconception, misinformation, stuff like that. And our question has always been,
mm,
since I can remember, is first of all, what does freedom really mean? And is freedom something that we
mm,
have, or is it something that is granted by someone else? And then if we
mm.
understand what freedom,
Then it's privilege, right?
well, I think
I mean, if it's given, it's privilege. I mean, then it's not really freedom. I mean, if someone say that, okay, now you have the day
exactly,
off,
exactly,
that's not freedom. That's privilege, right?
exactly.
And
So
that's what slaves have.
yeah, and that's, in many ways you could say, even though the word slave is for sure used differently, that's what we have been for a very, very long time. We had a limited
Yeah.
perception of what freedom means, and we thought, well, that's cool, that's what we have. And that has
Mm,
changed. Now the question is, when you gain a new understanding, not understanding,
mm,
understanding, when you gain a new
mm,
understanding, a new level of awareness, how do you bring
mm,
this to your daily lives? And that's what really matters to me. That is a spiritual
mm,
concept that we're talking about. And what is practical spirituality is implementing the realizations and applying them to your daily lives. And so I don't
mm,
see that in the movement at large. I see that in sections, but I don't see that in the movement at large because it requires radical change in one's life. And that's what's always been
mm.
my beef, if you will, with the trust to plan crowd. But I'm not, it's not for I'm not in for the controversy. I'm presenting my
No, no, no.
perspective,
It's okay.
and
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
basically
It's
it.
good. It's perfect. Yeah, I wanted to tell you about this pacifying. I mean, in order to say that it's pacifying people, I mean, my perspective is that we have this global system. I mean, this global system with financial system, and actually you have the banksters, the gangsters of the banksters, the banksters, and they can print money out of nothing, and then they trade that with us for our labor, for our time, for our freedom, and for the natural resources, and in order um, to make sure that we have the ability to pay back the interest over time. They have to create all these problems to get liquidity into the market. So if you have a global system, that is, you have the financial system and you have the telecom infrastructure in globally, and you have the internet and you have the power. So all of that is the same entity controlling that. So that is one entity, and in order to take that system down, I mean, if you talk about take, like Kennedy said, we take down the CIA and the Federal Reserve. Well, it's interconnected into different things. You know, you have the telecom, the internet, everything is now one system. So it's not really to take it down. And I mean, what can help to take that down? I mean, should I dump 20 times? How am I pacified? I mean, my view is that this is one part of this is to drain the swamp and take this down. And I will show you, we can see that that is actually happening. But the other side is actually educating the public. And that's where you come in. I mean, to make people think about, I mean, what is life, and uh, how come we have agreed to, we haven't agreed to it, but we don't say, you know, that we don't agree. So one part of it is educating the public, you know.
Yeah,
So
I
how
agree
do you
with you.
see, how can we activate, and what should we do, and what is the problem really? I mean, why aren't we free already?
Well, see, I want to quickly just talk about what you say, the takeover or the takedown of certain structures and the takeover of these structures, and just
Mm,
offer a different perspective, because I can see the changes happening in many structures. What I don't see is an improvement yet, but that could be down the line. But I'm offering a different perspective is, um, we
mhm,
only assume that these are good changes. That's all we do. We assume these are good changes. What I see is, generally speaking, the world, whether it's the plan that was quote unquote laid out and interpreted, by the movement around Q and Q itself or whoever was out there. And then there is this very well known Agenda 2030, which is basically the other side of it, which is a complete takeover, a complete digitization of the world, and a complete control system with social credit, with digital currency, with digital health passports, with 15-minute cities, and all of that. This is no secret anymore. It's out in the
mm,
open.
mm,
What I'm seeing is that both these plans are walking down the technocratic path. And technocracy is an
mm,
ideology. It's the ideology that technology and experts focused around technology are in charge. And that at the center of everything basically is AI, if you will, because that is the level of technology that we're dealing with right now. And both these
mm,
plans
mm.
are pointing in the same direction. It's just who's in charge of
No,
it.
we are already there.
Yeah.
We have lived in a technocracy for a long,
Yes,
long
yes,
time.
yes.
Everything is digitized. Everything.
I agree with you. What I'm seeing is it's not fully completed yet. On the surface, for in the minds of the people, it's not fully completed yet. Um, and to me, the technocratic path in and of itself is the downfall of humanity. Always has been. For as far back as you go, technocracies have never survived. That's why we see civilizations rise and civilizations fall, and there's always a choice. We go the natural, the
Mm,
organic path, or we go the technocratic path. And so, potato, potato, it's still the technocratic path.
mm, mm,
And the only way, and it's ironic that we're discussing this using technology. I mean, I don't, this is not lost on me. I always say that.
exactly.
It's
Mm,
not lost on me,
mm,
but we don't have to. And the more time that you actually spend in the inner world, if you will, or actually getting to know who you really are, what your true capabilities are, what you were created from, and the more
mm,
time that people go into a little more expanded states of consciousness, the
mm,
clearer things become. And the clearer it becomes that we are struggling to fight for a system that, in and of itself, is designed to destroy us. Whichever way you
mm,
slice it, technology is designed to destroy humanity. That's
mm,
the that's what happens every single time. So
mm,
the problem is not just a corrupt system, it's the system itself. It always has been. And so
mm,
what I'm suggesting is to return to what I call spirit, to return to a consciousness that is not limited to this 3D reality, that's not limited to the economy and politics and all these things, but that is actually beyond it, that might tap into what I call
mm,
true nature. And so this is something that still very few people are willing to really explore deeper, because it's a complete leaving of the comfort zone of what they know and what they think is important. And so, today when you ask
mm,
teenagers growing up, what would you rather go without for a month? Your pet,
mm.
your parents, your siblings, or your phone? What do you think they will pick? They will keep the phone and discard everything else. And so this is to me
Exactly.
the synonym of the problem that we're really facing. And so
Mm.
the question is much deeper than it usually appears to be.
Yeah, I know. But I feel like this. I mean, when we talk about technocracy, we talk about digital currency and so on. I mean, what we have now is a financial system that is controlled by these private entities, right? So you have the BIS, Bank of International Settlements. You have heard about that, right?
Of course, of course.
And yeah, of course, yeah. So and I mean, what you have is all these private banks. So now it's the private bank. I mean, you have a bank account, and then you have it. You don't have it at the Federal Reserve. You have another bank. So they are actually printing money from nothing, and then you have to pay the interest. But the interest is not created at
Oh
the
yeah,
same time, right? So that's why exponentially they have to give out more loans in order to get our payment system. That's our payment. Our money is actually debt,
of
right?
course.
So what you have is that this is growing exponentially, and what we have now is debt saturation. So and now they can't really find more people that can repay, because you have another issue. So we have built the societies on labor, and now when I mean the technology have taken over more and more, and we are more and more effective. We don't need all this labor. So I think that the whole system is collapsing, because you know we can't have eternal growth
Exactly.
in a planet that has, yeah. So so and everything we have in the bank account is digital already. And Sweden, okay, we have 99% digital, and but that is actually the banksters that have that. But like in Russia now and the BRICS countries, I don't know if you Americans see it this way, but I see it like this, that the dollar actually has stood for 90% of all global trade. So that was kind of a global currency. If you have 90% of percentage of the global trade, that is a global. That's one currency, right? So we already have that. And then you have these BRICS now, and they say that all 40 that have applied will join. And then you have 80% of the world GDP that actually are breaking out from this system. They're going back to gold standard. And this bankster system with the dollar is collapsing.
Yep.
But I mean, I know that, yeah. So in order to take this system down, you had one family, Wallenberg, and they controlled this, Ericsson, they controlled ABB, Nasdaq. Nasdaq is actually 150 stock markets, so it's all the stocks. They have the platform for all the stock market, and they have AstraZeneca, and yeah, EQT, yeah. So all the companies they have controlled. But in 2019, the DOJ actually took control over the company, and due to their corruption. And we believe that at the same time, they actually took control over Sweden. So we believe that we are under siege because this the Swedish government was so intertwined with all these companies. And actually, Trump called them out in 2015, Ericsson. And there is something called Ericsson Report done by
Yeah.
Michael Ray Corey. Yeah, so I mean, if you have one system, it's digital, it's global, and it's not so. Dollar is 90% of global trade. So when you take this down, I mean, you could really have a lot of death and suffering if you take this down in the wrong way, because you have all the food, the logistics chain. You can't just change the dollar, because the dollar is 90% of the global trade. So they haven't tried to take this down many times. They couldn't. Maybe they wanted to, and they have infiltrated for a very long time. But how can you? I mean, since the 30s or 1926, when they prepared bees, they have been, behind World War One, World War Two, Cold War. So you can't just. I mean, you talked about the Bolsheviks, I heard, and the Operation Trust.
Yes.
I mean, do you know that Ericsson, they gave the Tsar his first phone, and then he got killed. And then Lenin, the Bolshevik, he went to Sweden. He actually got money. Oh, sorry. Actually, he got money from a man on the board of Ericsson. Lenin did for this this revolution, and then they actually adopted a central bank. So the Bolshevik started. They were already prepared to join bees. So the Bolshevik, they killed the Tsar. They got money from Wallenberg, and he later became the foreign minister of Sweden.
No surprises there.
So they finance. So this is the sixth generation. I mean, they have been working for 200 years. The Chinese says that these Swedes have controlled their country for 200 years. And this is kind of the modern age. I mean, if I give you a phone, I can listen to you, and then I have the leverage. And that is also important. So this is one aspect, and this system, we can see, we have proof that they are taking this down, and we also have proof that they have never tried to take this down before. And they were also the people behind Federal Reserve, the same people. I can show you maybe 20 people. It's the same people over and over and over again, everywhere.
I'm not arguing on. I'm not. There are two perspectives here. One is a systemic perspective that you just presented beautifully, and that these things might not be known to the masses, but they're now known to many more people. The understanding of how a debt-based fiat system works, the understanding of how exponential interest rates work, of what the lifespan of such a financial system is, which we're at the end of, and what is basically in a material way controlling this. And I think this perspective is important to understand, but it's neither the beginning nor the end. That is the symptom of a much greater illness that had to come before this could ever get into place. And what I'm saying is that what made this possible was that humanity has forgotten their origins and who we really are, our creative power, our spiritual origins. And because we forgot it, or we're manipulated into forgetting it, whichever way you want to choose, all of this crap is even possible. So while I've gone down all the rabbit holes, not all of them, but most of which you just talked about, and there's no denying that. What I'm saying is the solution is in a different place. It's asymmetrical. This is kind of a symmetrical timeline of what happened, but the solution is
mm,
asymmetrical because the solution is actually an elevation of consciousness, because truly all of which you just talked about, these are all just belief systems. We just believe in these things. We believe in their importance, in their validity, in their necessity, all of that, but they aren't life. Neither
exactly.
neither the
Mm,
financial system nor the
mm,
telecommunication system, none of it is life.
mm,
It's all an artificial construct. And we believe in that
mm.
artificial
Yeah.
construct. And what's worse is we believe in only this is possible. It couldn't be done another way. And for us to see a broader perspective, we have to go within. That's the only way. And and people say,
Mm,
well, you can't meditate your way out of this. I agree. You have to bring practical solutions, but they have to come from a real authentic place. And that's all I'm saying is
mm.
that for as long as
You're
we
right.
on a larger scale do not really expand our awareness, we will continue fighting the
Mm,
same fight. And all we will do is put new people in charge of a broken system. And that's not what I want. That's not the solution I see. So, um, I'm not saying what you just laid out doesn't have importance,
mm,
but to me, it's not that's not the most important thing of them all. And especially, it's nothing that you and I and most of your viewers have any control over. There's nothing you can do for or against it in within that system. What you can do is withdraw your energy from it and say, "Hold on, I'm not playing the game anymore. I do not
mm,
I do not consent to be a part of this anymore." And that changes something on the inside.
mm,
It you kind of
mm.
regain sovereignty simply by making an
If we are
authentic
many,
decision.
mm. If we are enough people doing that.
Well, it
Yeah.
starts with one, and it starts with you and
Yeah,
I.
yeah, always.
And
Yeah.
what can little me do? 8 billion people thought. And so this has always
Yeah,
been the and like you said in the beginning, divide and conquer, right? Create as many little
exactly.
subgroups as possible and make them fight each other so they don't see what's really going on.
Exactly. Mm. And if you look at Sweden, we are the most atheist and spiritual. How do you say? We are not spiritual. I mean, if you look at the U.S., you have faith and church, and here is not so much of that. And I think that, and also you have a constitution. I mean, you have something. We are in the core. I can tell you that it's really hard here. I mean, if you don't have an income, then you cannot have a bank account, and then you will never get an apartment. And I mean, it's cold here. You have to live here, so it's really uh, yeah, it's really hard. And then they steal everything in tax and give us some some helicopter money, when we are. So this is kind of the core, and this is kind of the pilot for the world. as
Yeah.
as we begin when we spoke, yeah, that this is the most cashless, this is the most electronic, this is the core of everything. This is actually uh, the pilot. So if you look at Sweden, that was Agenda 2030. And what is funny with that agenda, that is the UN, right? And in 2019, that's when the World Economic Forum actually got an upswing because they made an agreement. So their agenda, the World Economic Forum, the Great Reset, was intertwined with Agenda 2030. And you have all this Soros woke systems that they implement in companies. And so but I think now that, I mean, we have Greta Thunberg, for example. I believe that she is planted from the constellation that work against the deep state, because they were stealing so much money for the Paris Agreement and so on. And what she is doing, she is actually making everybody go like Uh, well, the climate, I don't know if I believe that. Okay, I care for the environment, but I mean, the climate has always gone, in cycles. So I believe and that is the educational system that she has helped people see that, okay, maybe that is not true, really. And the same with Klaus Schwab. You can listen to him for 1 minute, and then you don't want anything with technology whatsoever, because he is like, yeah, you will merge into a human machine, and everybody goes like, what? So I believe that he is also playing a part in this educational system. I mean, to educate the public. So they are putting the agendas. Into extreme for us to make a choice, for us to see that, okay, if you are keep on going on this path, this is where you will end. And for us it's easy to see that because we are the pilot. We are years ahead of you in this agenda.
Is there a question in there?
No, that's ideas, and now I'm like your input and your
No,
ideas.
I was wondering because you see as I said earlier, you're I mean these things they're all correct and in terms of what is unfolding and
Yeah.
what people can observe. It's even when you look at how a system operates, the foundation is consent. The foundation is
Yeah.
somebody says, "Here's how we're going to do it," and then somebody else says, "Okay, we're going to play the game." Now,
Mm,
we have lived outside of the system for long enough to see a you don't have to be a part of it if you don't want to, and b it can be done. But I think
mhm,
what people need to understand is when you talk about money, whether it's the dollar or the euro, whatever currency, it's their money. It's not your or my money.
yeah.
So by accepting this as form of payment and accepting this into our lives and accepting that
Mm,
they have the sole authority according to their system
mm,
to create money or currency, we already say yes, we're playing, but we wouldn't have to. And I think th- slowly but surely people are beginning to understand it's an individual decision. And my wife and I we love this little diagram. It's very simple. If you look at the
mm,
hierarchy, and the hierarchy is there's much more, but here's the most simple thing. Up here is the creator, and you can call it
mm,
God, you can call it creator, whatever you want, it doesn't really matter. Up here's God, the creator. God created man. Man created the system, government, right? So that's here, down
mm,
here.
mm,
What has happened is that the system has assumed the role up here, even above man, above God. And this is where the everything has been
mm,
turned upside down. What all that people have to do is embody their rightful place in the hierarchy. That's all that has to happen. And it's game over tomorrow. It's not as
mm,
complicated as it sounds because these systems implode when the energy is withdrawn. But in order for you to withdraw energy, you have to know what is the alternative. Where else are we going?
mm.
And that is a
Exactly.
spiritual knowing. Because guess what? Insurances, bank accounts,
Mm,
life insurances, healthcare, all of this hasn't existed before the early
mm.
1900s. And,
No.
and people were just fine without all the crap. And that's
Mm,
why we're at this stage where I think that has been my belief for a long time. The system as it is now is beyond saving, and there's
mm.
something much
Yeah.
better. There's something much better. And you said we have a
Mm,
constitution here. I agree with you. We do have a constitution. Whether it's intact or not is a whole different question. But what really matters is the
mm,
inner constitution. Because although people recite the constitution and they quote it, they don't embody it. They
mm,
quote the freedom
mm,
of speech and the freedom of religion, but they don't embody it.
mm.
They don't live it. And so that it's worth
No.
nothing if we don't live it. And that's where we really get into the most fundamental questions of life. And that's where I see the solution really coming in, much more than from a change of leadership. And and we've seen
Mm,
also. I know this is an unpopular thing to say in many circles, but Trump's not the savior. I think people have. He's kind of become this Jesus-like figure in people's minds, and the guy has
in the
done some.
US, I think.
The guy has done some really good things. I'll give that to him, and just within the regular scope of a presidency, he's done some really good things, and people had positive effects from that. But he's also done some really, really bad things, and has implemented things and brought things to the society at large that were very, very, very bad for a lot of people, and deadly for a lot of people. So it's so dangerous to give away all your power to one figure, to one person, or to even just one plan. And all that we're encouraging people to do is bring it back, embody that divinity within you, connect with your creator, and watch what happens.
Mm. Yeah, I agree with you that, but the way I see it is that I heard, I think his name is Dr. Green. Yeah, it was a short. He was talking about. I don't know if he has studied maybe aliens and alien tech and so on, but he was talking about an entity that had this really advanced tech
Oh,
technology.
Dr. Stephen Greer?
And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And he was talking about that, and he was like, the president doesn't have jurisdiction, and how do you take this down? And I mean, they didn't know exactly what they had. We believe that they actually invented the quantum computing in the 50s already, and that they have used that. So we believe that they have used really advanced tech, and when I talk about they, I talk about this cluster of corporate interest with Wallenberg, because you know if you look at the history, we are actually making a documentary now that we will take, Sweden, US, because when you got your Supreme Court in the US, that was at the same time as we did in Sweden, and then you had actually Delaware and New Sweden, so we already had a colony where Biden hangs out, so actually we were there long before in the 1600s, before you became a country. So actually the Supreme Court was Swedish, doing that. And so even the legal system, um, they did at the same time. But then you have the forefathers, this Declaration of Independence, and then I think that they have seen all the Swedish, and they knew what they were up against, both with the British and the Swedish, and actually the Netherlands. They had different, but they knew what they were up against. So actually, the only thing that can be I mean help this is actually the constitution. We have nothing, and the rest of the world doesn't, but you have something that could really help if you embody it, if you implement it. So what I think that I mean, you didn't use it because you have this 1871, with the Vatican, the City of London, and Washington DC. You had all these policies, so you didn't actually use the constitutions. So how I see it is like Derek says, with the continuity of government and the law of war manual. So what I see is that Trump, he's not the savior, but he was a military president, and his task was to implement law of war and declare national security globally. And he succeeded with that, so he doesn't even have to come back. because that was the only thing that could, I mean, that could take down this corporate interest, because they didn't have jurisdiction and they didn't know exactly what they had in terms of advanced technology. So I agree with you that maybe they had a lot of things that we are not aware of, and they have secrets that we don't know that, you know. But if we look ancient, I mean, how did they build everything? I mean, they had knowledge. I mean, it's more beautiful. Tataria and everything is more beautiful. Is more advanced. You know, it seems like they were even more advanced than now in one sense.
I'm sure they were. You know, there are two in healing. There are two trains of thoughts, or two different systems of thought in the healing world, and one focuses solely
Mm,
on the body. It focuses solely on the vessel,
mm,
even in the holistic way, but it still focuses solely on the vessel, and it's very sophisticated. It has, amazing knowledge, and part of that amazing knowledge, for example, in osteopathy, you find that osteopathy is more complex than that. But one stream of thought focuses solely on the body and how you can manipulate reactions and manipulate events in the body in order to facilitate physical healing, and that's legitimate.
mm,
And then there's another stream of thought, and that stream of thought says that all sickness originates because of spiritual or psychological sickness, or basically both. And so when trauma
mm,
happens, or when another impactful event happens in your life, and you store that and it's unresolved and it's never addressed, and it starts causing all these problems in the body, and the longer you go, the bigger the problems get. And I think you and I
mm,
are discussing uh, one train of thought and the other train of thought, and I, I
mm,
I'm not they're not mutually exclusive. They belong together. So
mm,
you're in my perception, you're talking a lot about everything that you can do physically, materially, to change the body, help it address the issues, and help its healing. It's important. But what I'm saying is,
mm,
we have to go a step deeper and go, what caused it? What created the sickness? What
mm,
was the real reason that it was there, right? And so
mm,
if
mm,
you want to go just to the step that you just addressed, like the Constitution, most people don't know this, but the founding fathers didn't just magically come up with that Constitution. They didn't, they came from systems that didn't really embody freedom, or even the idea of freedom, in a time
mm,
that was very uh, straight, monarchies, and it was either the king or the church who was in charge. So they didn't have
mm,
maybe a desire, but no idea of how freedom could operate. And so a lot of
mm,
what we read in the Constitution was inspired by the Six Nations Confederacy, and they
mm,
had seminars over years where they spent with the elders, the Iroquois elders, for example, and they taught them their
mm,
Six Nations Confederacy Constitution. But see, they took out one
mm,
important piece of that body of knowledge, because they taught them all about freedom. It was the Native Americans here that inspired a lot of that.
mm,
But in their tradition, it was the clan mothers, the givers of life, who had the final say in the important issues, also in who goes to war. And the founding fathers did not include that in their stream of thought, because culturally,
mm,
religiously, it was not accepted that women would have such an important role in society. And so we're if you go to the imbalance of things, you have to go to the root. And one of the roots is a
mm,
complete imbalance between the masculine and feminine energies here. They're out of balance.
mm,
And so even the Constitution in its current form, it has provisions that then finally gave women a voice, but that was not nearly far enough that they needed to go. And we have spiritual work to do, and there's just no way around it. We have consciousness work to do, and then we bring that awareness to everything that we fix in our
mm,
physical reality, and things change in an exponential way rather than in a linear way. And so if soul healing happens, the body follows. So if our inner healing happens, the reality around us will follow. And that's the only way I see it happen. You can't have the system or the downfall of the system create a new consciousness. It's a new consciousness or the original consciousness that creates A, the downfall, and B, the transformation of the system. And so whenever we're so tempted to just manipulate reality around us, I go, let's go back, let's go back, let's work on this here, bring it into a divine balance, and this shit will follow. Because that's who you bring to the table. You bring your balanced self, you bring your healed self. It's a whole different game then.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I feel that is thing with this linear different perspective, because I can see I agree with a lot that everything that you say, but there are two separate perspective, but both are equally important. And I think that we, especially in Sweden, we have lost everything that you talk about, but we are getting there. I mean, we are talking more about, healing, also the nature that we have, like yeah, everything that can heal us in the nature. I mean, they have in nature, they have all these mushrooms, and they say, oh, that's deadly, and but they have been lying about everything. So we really have to go back to the roots. And all this about cancel culture and burning books, it actually works. I mean, you can forget so much knowledge just by doing that. So I think that we really also have to take the elderly, because maybe we can find, you know, this goes from one generation to another. And I mean, you have the Amish people. I mean, you have people that really are, saying no.
Yeah. Well, there's a
We
different
don't. We
tradition.
don't.
It's a different tradition, and having a European background, I see the complacency and the lack of courage, in a lot of the
Mm,
European cultures. And I can say this
mm.
without guilt or shame because that's where my origins are. And I think
You're from Austria, right?
I grew up in Austria, yeah.
Austria.
And
Yeah,
yeah, and it's the same.
I love it there.
It's basically a spiritual Afghanistan. So there's not much spirituality there. Um, and and I assume I've only ever flown into Sweden and then moved on. I've been to Norway, I've been to Iceland,
Mhm,
I've been to
mm,
Denmark for a short period of time, but um, there this spiritual connection has been severed, and when that is severed, people are lost, like you say, and they can't see the truth. They literally cannot see the truth, and that's why what I said earlier is so important in my view, because the only truth is that we are created from the same um, consciousness that everything was created, that all of the most beautiful things that you could possibly imagine were created. So we were created from that energy, and
mm,
that energy, if you will, or that consciousness is
mm,
truth. So if we do not connect to that, we can't see truth around us.
mm,
We can only see facets and certain shades of it, but we don't see the whole thing. And that's why the spiritual connection comes first. And that's why that's what's been severed from the beginning, right? That was the greatest, the greatest accomplishment of these dark forces, if you will, is to sever people from a real spiritual connection. And they presented
mm,
priests and interpreters, if you will, and preachers that will they are the stand-ins. They have the connection to God, and you listen to them, and you lose your own connection.
mm,
And in Europe, this has been done extremely successful, and here to a certain extent too, but a little less. And but that spiritual connection
mm,
really is what enables the healing on all other levels. And so,
mm,
like you said, these are two perspectives, but they're not two disconnected ones. They belong together. And I
Yeah.
think, 15 years ago, you were either talking about the spiritual things or you were talking about the world conspiracies. But you were not talking about both in the same
Mhm.
conversation because they were different people. Now the people are coming together and finally
Exactly.
realizing it's all one story, and it's much
Mhm.
much bigger than the government, the CIA, the Ericssons, and these are just the symptoms. Just the symptoms. This is how far it's come because of the spiritual sickness. And
Yeah.
and so we just have to go back to the roots, like you said. We have to go back to the real roots of where this started.
Mm. But it's by design, I mean, everything to weaken us, everything to make us fight each other. And, you know, what we are discussing here is actually what it is to be a human, right? Because you need everything that you are talking about, but you also need to pay your bills and be able to provide for your family. And in Sweden, at least, you can't be outside the system. Then you will have you can have no electricity, you can have no place to stay. I mean, you can. So it's they have done it so smart. It's kind of one system, and you can be like yeah, traveling for years, but then you want to have children, for example, and then you need somewhere to stay. Then you have to get a job, a bank account, an apartment or a house. And yeah, so you can be outside for some time, but then you come to a point where you have to go in. So I just feel that we are not. I want to bring in your perspective more and more, uh, but I don't feel that we aren't there yet.
Well, it's an
We
individual
need
there.
we need.
It's
Mm,
an individual journey. See, for every example you just brought, I know a lot of people who done it differently and who are doing it differently.
mm,
But first you have to imagine that it's possible. And it's like that is
mm,
literally stepping outside of the matrix. This is a simulated reality. Even if you don't believe in the technological aspects of it, it's still an artificial
mm,
reality. None of these things are natural, they're artificial. So for
mm,
for you to step out of it, or anyone for that matter, is to first, you have to see the possibility. And you have to know
mm,
that if you are limitless uh, awareness, because that's what you are.
mm,
Outside of the body you're limitless. Only in the body you have certain limitations. If you are
mm,
limitless awareness, then how could you be limited by all of the circumstances that you just brought up? It is definitely not possible to be fully in this system and live a free life, but that's a choice. And so for everyone who says it can't be done, there are enough people who do it every day and who are actually stepping outside of it, who are creating movements, who are creating different ways of life, who are getting off the grid, and they're simply not taking no for an answer. Is it easy? No, I didn't say it was easy. Nobody said it will be easy,
mm,
because we have been programmed. The you can take a fish out of the aquarium, but it's very hard to take the aquarium out of the fish. So once a fish was
mm,
born into this little space, right? That it moves in that little space all of its life. Now you take it out and put it in the great wide ocean, it still does the little movements in this little space because that's all it knows. It doesn't even see the
mm,
ocean of possibilities around it. And that's the stepping out of it. That's the stepping out of the matrix, connecting with your true heart, and allowing yourself to experience what does limitless possibility actually feel like. What does it feel like to have infinite choice,
mm,
infinite possibilities? And that's the inner journey I'm talking about. And all of a sudden, when you practice that, reality begins to reflect those possibilities. And things you couldn't even imagine before begin to show up in your life. Even solutions for things that
mm,
shouldn't be solved. And the reason why I'm talking about it is because I have enough of personal experience to prove it. We have solved things in
mm,
our lives that people say that can be solved. It's just that's the way it's going to be.
mm,
That's the shit you're going to carry. And we just didn't accept that. We didn't accept that it had to be that way. And
mm,
there is a point in all of this where all of the grand conspiracies of the world and all of these
mm,
powerful people don't seem so powerful anymore. And you see their fear and you see their worry that you could possibly figure out the great secret, and that's who you really are. And then they become so small and their power becomes so meaningless. But that's something that
mm,
happens on the inside. And when it happens, boy, does it open up a whole new world that wasn't there before. And
mm,
every time, my wife and I, we do retreats twice a year. We meet with about 30 people for 4 or 5 days, and we go really deep into the spiritual work, the meditations, the psychological work, the trauma work. And when people, and sometimes it's people in their 50s, 60s, maybe 70s, who for the first time go deep enough into meditation that they connect with the real I. And when they make that connection, their life has forever changed, and you can see it in their eyes. In an instant, it has changed, and it will never change back. When that happens, it's game over for this whole charade, all this bullshit, because that's what it's all based on, is for you to believe you're small and for you to believe they're big. That's all that needs to
mm.
continue for this game to continue. And when people realize they're not small, they're actually grand co-creators. It's game over today, not tomorrow, not in a year, not a decade. Today.
Mm. I mean, everything is built on trust, and as long as we trust it and play by it and say yes, uh, but I still feel that we will need some kind of system because I mean everything with technology is not bad. You said something about it's dystopian to have. I mean, you can have a decentralized internet. I mean, you have certain freedom when you go online, right? You can do things, and let's say you have banking in the same way. You have or something to because maybe I can't grow vegetables. I need something to pay something or trade. But you have sick people, you have old people that they don't have anything to trade. So it feel like a lot of people that are going off grid is kind of I feel that sometimes it's like if you have the information or the knowledge or the perspective, you can position yourself, buy crypto, buy this stock up, with but no, I mean a lot of people don't have that, and they are just I mean, we are so many, and I just feel that it can be a better system as well. And I think that, I mean, we need some kind of system. We talked about this the other day in my channel. We talked about law and order. We talked about, you know, pedophiles and so on. And then someone wrote in the comment section, like, yeah, but it's only God that can judge. But I mean, we can't have rapists on the streets, right? So
No,
as long as but I mean, we can't have murderers and killers. So we have to have a legal system. We have to have something. I mean, we have to be able to feel safe, right? I mean, we can't just have people go into your house and steal everything and just because they just point a gun and take what they want. I mean, we are not there in the evolution as human beings. So we still need some sort of system, and we can work together to make the system work for us and good for us and make us, I mean, more free and safe. How do
well,
you
there's
think
no
about that?
there's no doubt about that. There and every community, every society, every tribe has had a system. Um, the
Mhm.
the difference is
Yeah,
what
some countries.
consciousness is a system born from, right? And so that's why
Yeah.
if we truly want a different system, we need to approach it with a different awareness. You know, I don't usually, I'm
Mhm.
not in the
Yeah.
habit of quoting Einstein, but he did say something very profound. He said, you know, the definition of stupidity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. And so, you know, if you ask me,
Exactly.
I've said this over and over again. If you violate a child, if you violate a woman, if you rape and kill and
Mm.
abuse, you have
Yeah.
lost your
Yeah.
space. You have lost your space in society, and society has a right to protect itself. I agree
Mm.
with you on all of that.
Exactly.
Um, as I said, it's not
Yeah.
a mechanical process.
But it's
It's not a mechanical process. It's a spiritual
oh,
and
it's
a
good to have this.
consciousness process.
Mm. But I think we should aim for, becoming so free that we can trust each other but also, I mean, this society, they have poisoned us. I mean, I believe that about 500,000 Swedes are eating pills, and we are about 10 million. So, and they give it to children and they give it to everybody, and it's just horrible. So I think that they have with the sugar. We eat, I think, the most sugar in the world here, and also with the fluoride, and yeah, chemtrails. Yeah, you know everything. So I think that we are um, not all of us are sane, and that is not only our fault.
But ultimately, it is. Ultimately, it's all of our fault. We allowed it to happen over eons of
Yeah.
time. So we have to. That's the whole message here, Cornelia. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. To me, freedom means taking full responsibility for my life, my actions, my words, my thoughts, everything. And that includes, even though I know that a lot of things have been done to me, and there are a lot of perpetrators out there who
Mm,
are putting poison in everything and who are all of that is true. But if I wait for somebody else to fix it, I'll wait forever. And so I assume full responsibility over my life, and to the extent that it's, you know, possible, of course, for my family. Now our children are young adults, so they assume most of their responsibility themselves, but assuming responsibility for one's life and stepping out of the victim mode and saying, hey, yes, this happened. Yes, this was done to me. But if I don't do anything about it,
mm,
nothing will change in my life. That is ultimately the key point. So, healthy people create healthy families create healthy societies, and healthy societies create healthy systems. It's as simple as that, really. And as
mm,
long as we say but there's this problem and that problem and this is holding me back, we will not get into action. And I think this is why I've always thought that there's an advantage to America that a lot of other nations don't have. It's not just the spirit of freedom
mm,
that's kind of still alive here, it's also the spirit of possibility. And it's like, okay, we
yeah.
can do this. No matter what happened before, we
Mm,
can change this, right? And this is the spirit that is missing in a lot of other places in the
mm,
world because it's been bad for so long. But it's just time to step into that spirit. And then we literally are the plan. We are the plan. Look, that's what it's
mm.
always been
Yeah,
about. We are
exactly.
the plan, but it's not
Mm,
us deciphering or just decoding things. It's us becoming the actionable doers of the plan, us actually changing our
mm,
lives, healing physically, spiritually, mentally, because when we're whole, then we project
mm,
that wholeness all around us. And people want to know, what did you do? How come you're happier? How come you're healthier? How come you look better? How come you have so
mm,
much energy?
mm,
Well, I healed. I'm
mm.
healing. So here, this is what I did. You might try it too. and that has a ripple effect
mm,
on your families, on your societies, on your I couldn't care less what kind of poisons they come up with, because once we're in that state, which a lot of people or more and more people are getting into, those poisons they can't
mm,
touch you anymore, and you won't touch them anymore. So ultimately, it all boils back to the same point, over and over again for me. That to me is the beginning of the solution.
mm. But it also has to do with knowledge. I mean, we can't know something that we don't know. So, I mean, a lot of people, they don't they don't know things. They don't even know that they have poisoned us. But I see a big change. In Afghanistan, uh, they were, you know, really producing, I think, most of the heroin for the world, and Sweden has been there for 20 years at least, with our military, and the yeah, 9/11, and the war on terrorism and so on. But now they are actually, I mean, the Taliban means student, right? And they have forbid the opium, so they have, yeah, reduce it with 95%. And also all this big, I mean, so many drugs. They found cocaine in Spain from that came from Ecuador, and it was actually the Swedish government logo on one, and actually the Nazi sign, the swastika on some of them. So and that is because of that, the DOJ took control over Ericsson. They have the internet and the telecom infrastructure globally. And since you are in the continuity of government, that is now under Space Force. So I believe that they have been able to listen before, but they couldn't really act on it because it's all about this jurisdiction things. But now, since the Space Force has control over internet and the telecom infrastructure globally and bees, and also with that, Ericsson, you have Red Bee Media, and that is 500 TV stations. So when they took control over that, now they can start act on things. So what I could show you is actually how they are draining the swamp, and how they are exposing this, because we need to see, by believe by seeing ourselves. So what I'm showing in my channel is all these signs, everything that is actually improving. You said that, oh, things aren't improving. They are improving. I can show you there are so many signs. So we know that the Kraken, they took the Kraken, and then they are unfolding things. And this takes some time because it's one whole system. And I believe that we need some kind of system, but we don't. I mean, we had criminals. Actually, they were bribing and sponsoring and founding ISIS for 17 years. They also gave the coordinates to Al Qaeda. So now it's a big trial with 800 families or something in the US against Ericsson. And we can see all of these things. And when you understand the system and the core of the system, and you know that now the Space Force is in control over that. So, but what symptoms are the most important to reverse? I mean, because you have all these cells, need to know basis, and you have all this corruption. So if you want to take more than just the top, just the system, you want to take all these people that have actually done, criminal things, or just did they, useful idiots, just did their job. How can you take them? So I believe that this is a sting operation, but in many layers. And how can you switch system and make the people see? Because a lot of people are gaining from the system. So and they don't want to change the system. And in the US, you have so many guns, So how can you make this change without getting a civil war? And what I see is that when you say, oh, it's not improving, that is actually a good sign, because that tells me, okay, they are switching this without affecting the public, and without so much violence. And we saw with George Floyd and that. I mean, the deep states, they still had some. I mean, they are, specialists with Antifa, this BLM. That's all of their mercenaries, right? So, but they are being exposed and taken down, and also their money has been stopped. I mean, George Soros now, he is convicted in the U.S. under U.S. law, and that was not the case before. And because his bank is in Stockholm, SE Bank, and that's his bank, and he had like foreign jurisdiction, but Trump changed it. So I believe that he has put so many changes, executive orders into place, and we can see how they went into effect, how they took down Ericsson, how they took control over bees, how they took control over the whole system. So Space Force now. So what you see is educational purpose for us to see. So we have to say no. Exactly what you're saying. We have to say no. We have to say that we don't play by this. We don't want this. We say no.
Well, I will. I think we're about an hour and 15 minutes in, and I will slowly have to go. There's a lot of on the agenda today, but I'll just end with this. I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. We share on our channel, we share with our audience what we share, and I appreciate every layer of this work. I appreciate you for what you do, and a lot of others for what they do.
Mm.
I just want
Same.
to bring one perspective into this, that maybe some of the things you just shared were facts, some of them were assumptions. And it's kind of like when we go on assumptions, it can go either way. But basically, what you described was there was a goal, and it's been long standing, this goal to bring everything under one umbrella, to bring the whole world under one control system. You just described it. You're just assuming it's a good thing. That's all that it is. And I'm saying, don't be so certain that it's a good thing. Because when you say the Space Force took over all, let's say, what we at least know, which is a confirmed fact, took over all military satellite communication in the United States for the first time.
Yeah.
A military agency has all control over that.
Yeah.
And in connection with that, many other things. Then what we're saying is this is more centralization of power, not decentralization. This is centralization of power. And this is the fact. You might say it's for a good reason and for a good purpose, and I can't dispute that because I don't know. What I do know is the facts that tells me that there's more centralization of power today than there was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, or even 5 years ago. And that to me is not a good thing. In and of itself, it's not a good thing. Because the only difference between a catastrophe and a good time is whoever's in charge of now that centralized system. And when I look at what the New World Order goals and plans were laid out, this is it. This is pretty much it. It just doesn't sound like it. And I know we disagree on that, and that must be fine. And I'm not saying I'm right.
No.
I'm just saying this is a
I just
perspective
want
that
to.
I'm sharing.
Yeah, but I mean, I see it. It was a centralized system, but it was controlled by Wallenberg, one family, one private entity in the shadows that people didn't know, and they were criminals. So, in order for the military to take over that system for a while, and what we see with BRICS is actually sovereign countries. They can use. I mean, Russia. They told Africa, they forgave their debts. They gave them grain for free, and they promise them they can trade in their own currency. So they are strengthening the sovereignty of every country. So that we didn't have before. So we have more sovereign countries now. Now we have 80% of world GDP. that will be sovereign, that will be able to trade in their own currency. Before, you had 90% the trade was the dollar. So it was more centralized before, and it was a criminal syndicate, and that was Swedish. And we know that they took control over that in 2019. So for a while, yes. But I mean, Putin, Xi, Orban, and Modi in India, they are all working to have their sovereign country, right, and trade in their own currency, and then they can make trade agreements. So I mean, before, it's easy for you to say, but you had 90% of world trade, so that was more centralized than it is now.
Well, the plan is actually for the BRICS nations to have their own currency, which would bring 80% of the world's GDP into one currency, a digital currency, might I
No,
say.
no, no, no. No, it's a basket of currencies. So they can all trade in their own currency. I promise you. So that's the plan. And
Yeah.
also now you can see Kenya now, they are selling oil in their own currency. Saudi are selling oil in their own currency. So now I think 30 or 40% are more trades now in their own currency. Before, they were not even allowed. I mean, you had the petrodollar and the narco dollar, and
No, I don't
90%
disagree
was
with you on
global.
that. I understand that, and what what I'm saying is beware if the cure is not worse than the problem was, and that's a possibility. That's what I think is the hopium. That's the hopium. There are so many moving pieces in this that people interpret. They just interpret them the way they want to interpret them. But that doesn't mean it will play out this way. And I'm not a pessimist at all, because what I laid out over this hour and 20 minutes is what I believe is the
Was
solution.
pure.
And the solution is to me, it's never been in the system. It will reflect that, but
Mm.
when we to a to the extent of a critical mass, and a critical mass is not
Mm.
50%, it's far less. A critical
Yes.
mass actually embody that change. And so
Mm.
I'll be the first one to come on your show and say, hey, I was wrong about this. I have no problem with saying that when that happens, but I'm not putting my eggs in that basket. I'm not, I don't believe, I currently don't see that what is unfolding is really the solution. Hopefully, maybe it will be a part of the solution. But this is just how I see it. It's just one man's perspective. That's all that it is.
I feel that you laid out everything perfectly, and I don't feel that you have. I mean, I haven't really contradicted you, or we give different perspectives, and both are equally important. So I thank you so much for coming, and it was so. I can see that the audience loved what you shared. So, and they are used to my my education. So. I thank you so much, and I felt that it was really enlightening.
Thank you, Cornelia. Thank you for your work, and for your
Thank
audience.
you.
And for what people, if I may, a very short parting message. Do
Yeah,
what
please.
do what you can with what you have where you are. That's kind of the what I like to share with people, because it's more than they think it is. Do what you can
Mm,
with what you have where you are. Believe me, there's a divine spark inside of you. You are a piece of the puzzle, and if you embody
mm,
that piece of the puzzle, things will begin changing in your life. And
mm.
when things begin changing in your life, they begin affecting the people around you, and you are then contagious in the most best possible way. So I want to thank you, Cornelia,
Mm.
for your work and your audience, and much love to everybody.
Yeah, I think I should end with your song.
Oh, feel
Wouldn't
free,
that
by
be
all means,
lovely?
feel free.
Yeah, I think we will play that video from your YouTube channel. And please let people know where to find you.
Oh yeah, we're the best way to find anything we do is theinspiredchannel.com. From there, you can
Mm.
find everything. Or if, of course, if you're on YouTube or Rumble, just look for Inspired. That's our channel. And yeah, I'd love to see you come over and let's connect.
And you have Twitter or
Yeah,
yeah,
it's all there linked.
what is
You
it?
know, they're kind of a little bit of different names. So if you go to the inspiredchannel.com, you find all the social media icons, and you can go
Mm?
wherever you want to go.
Great. Thank you so much. And I will just wrap it up and look at all the questions. And we thank you so much for your time and your perspective. I really love this. The energy in this conversation was beautiful, I think.
Thank you, thank you. I agree, and I appreciate
Thank
the
you.
opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care now.
You too.
Now we play Keep America Great with John Nolan.
Speak your mind, do your thing, and live your dreams. Strong roots, free like the wind. Stand up for truth, stand up for what is right. Be the change, yeah, be the light. From the blue collar roots to the cowboy boots, from the Midwest farms to the southern pews, from the mountain tops to the rivers and seas. It's what we love, it's what we breathe, from Alaska down to Key West. Yeah, God bless these United States. Keep it strong, keep it free, keep America great. Lend a hand, say a prayer, and do your part. With open minds and full hearts. Red, white, and blue, the stars and the stripes. Yeah, we love our way, highway to life. From the blue collar roots to the cowboy boots, from the Midwest farms to the southern pews, from the mountain tops to the rivers and seas. It's what we love, it's what we breathe, from Alaska down to Key West. Yeah, God bless these United States. Keep it strong, keep it free, keep America great. From the blue collar roots to the cowboy boots, from the Midwest farms to the southern pews, from the mountain tops to the rivers and seas. It's what we love, it's what we breathe, from Alaska down to Key West. Yeah, God bless these United States. Keep it strong, keep it free, keep America great. Keep it strong, keep it free, keep America great.